The auction pit reeked of sweat, blood, and desperation. Beneath the blazing artificial suns of the slave bazaar, an array of captured warriors, exotic creatures, and rare specimens stood in rusted iron cages, their eyes hollow with resignation. Lucas Hayes stepped carefully over the cracked stone floor, adjusting the stiff collar of his diplomat's uniform. His eyes swept across the grim procession of misery before him, his stomach twisting at the sight. A booming voice shattered the murmuring crowd. Next up, the terror of the Xiphos arenas, the butcher of Veros, the undefeated Karya. The air seemed to still. With a metallic shriek, the cage at the center of the stage rolled open, and she stepped into the light. 9 feet of sheer, battle-hardened muscle, draped in chains thick enough to tow a warship. Her violet-blue skin shimmered beneath the heat lamps, every inch of it scarred with the brutal history of 100 battles. Her mane of jet-black hair fell in tangled waves around her shoulders, matted with sweat and dried blood. Her eyes, piercing, silver like molten steel, swept the crowd with barely contained fury. She bared her teeth, sharp as a predator's. The crowd flinched as she yanked at the chains, sending her handlers scrambling back in fear. A collar, thick and studded with pulse shock nodes, flared with blue energy as one of the slavers twisted the control dial. Karya snarled in pain, her limbs locking up as the electric current coursed through her massive frame. Lucas clenched his fists. This wasn't a gladiator. This was a slave. He'd seen enough. He turned to the auctioneer. "I'll take her." The silence was deafening. Even the auctioneer hesitated. "Sir, this one. She's unstable. Too dangerous. Name your price." The slaver's eyes glinted with greed. 200,000 credits. Lucas's jaw tightened. The price was extortion, but he didn't flinch. Done. The gavel struck. Sold. And just like that, the butcher of Veros belonged to him. The slaver's goons shoved Karya into Lucas's transport ship like an enraged beast, her chains dragging across the metal floor with a deafening clang. The moment they left, she lunged. Lucas barely dodged as she swung a shackled fist at his skull, missing by inches. The force of the impact dented the bulkhead behind him. He didn't react, didn't reach for a weapon, just folded his arms and met her furious glare with an infuriating calm. "Are you finished?" Karya bared her teeth. "Kill me, human." "No." She stilled. Lucas exhaled, rubbing his temples. "You're free now, Karya. I didn't buy you to own you. I bought you to save you." Her laughter was dark, bitter. "Spare me your lies. There is no freedom for creatures like me." He knelt, unlocking the control collar with a quick swipe of his hollow key. The metal clattered to the ground. The shock nodes fizzled out. Karya's hands flew to her neck in disbelief. Lucas stood, stepping back. "You can leave. Right now. Take an escape pod. Hell, take the whole damn ship if you want. I won't stop you." Karya hesitated. For the first time in years, there was no whip, no electric collar, no slaver forcing her into the pits, no cage, just an open door and a man who did not fear her. Her silver eyes locked onto him, unreadable. Then, without a word, she turned and walked away. Lucas sighed, rubbing his temples. "Yeah, this is gonna be a long trip." And the door slid shut behind her. The hum of the ship's engines thrummed beneath Karya's bare feet as she stalked through the dimly lit corridors. The human's words echoed in her skull. "You're free now." She had spent years hearing nothing but the roars of bloodthirsty crowds, the snap of electrified whips, the guttural howls of her dying opponents. But now, silence. No chains. No commands. The freedom was suffocating. Karya found herself in the ship's armory, an open doorway revealing racks of weapons, pulse rifles, plasma blades, shock batons. Her fingers twitched. A warrior without a weapon was a dead woman. She reached for a pulse rifle. "I wouldn't do that." Lucas's voice was maddeningly calm behind her. She tensed, curling her fingers around the rifle's grip. "Afraid I'll shoot you, human?" "More like afraid you'll blow a hole in my ship." Lucas leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "That's an anti-personnel rifle. Energy rounds. Will punch through half the bulkheads before stopping." She tested the weight in her hands. I'll take my chances. He sighed. Look, I get it. You've been a weapon your whole life. But you don't have to be one here. Karya turned, towering over him. That is all I am. Lucas met her gaze without flinching. Maybe that's all they let you be. Silence stretched between them. Then, with a grunt, she set the rifle back onto the rack. Your ship is weak, she muttered. Lucas smirked. And you're a terrible house guest. Her silver eyes narrowed. Lucas decided to change the subject before she crushed his spine. We'll be reaching Vostal in a few hours. I have a contact there who might know how to get you back to your people. Karya's expression hardened. I have no people. Lucas hesitated. He had read the reports. Her species, the HFY had been nearly exterminated in the war against the Syndicate. Those who remained were either refugees or enslaved warriors like her. Still, he simply said, then maybe we can find out who's left. She did not answer. But this time, she didn't walk away. Vostal was a dying world. Once a bustling trade hub, the planet had been left to rot after the Syndicate's war scorched its surface. Now, it was a wasteland of crumbling towers and abandoned spaceports, a haven for black market dealers, slavers, and those who had nowhere else to go. Lucas guided the ship through the smog-choked atmosphere, setting it down on a rusted landing pad. Karya watched the ruins through the viewport. This place stinks of death, she muttered. Lucas grabbed his coat. Yeah, well, welcome to the underbelly of the galaxy. As they descended the ramp, Karya immediately felt the weight of a dozen unseen eyes. The air was thick with tension. Even here, in a place filled with criminals and outcasts, she was something to be feared. Lucas led her through the winding alleys, past neon-lit brothels and makeshift cantinas overflowing with desperate men and women. As they entered a dingy bar, the conversations fell silent. Karya tensed. Her instinct screamed ambush. At the back of the bar, a hooded figure sat alone, a single cybernetic eye gleaming from beneath his cloak. Lucas approached. Cronies. The figure looked up, a slow smirk forming. Haze. Still collecting strays, I see. Lucas ignored the jab. I need information. HFY survivors. Anyone left? Cronies glanced at Karya, his mechanical eye whirring as it scanned her. Well, you actually found one. I thought they were all dead. Karya clenched her fists. Cronies leaned forward. There's a colony. Hidden. Deep in Syndicate-controlled space. Lucas frowned. That's suicide. Probably. Cronies shrugged. But if you're looking for the last of the HFY, that's where they are. Karya's voice was low, dangerous. Give me coordinates. Cronies chuckled. And what do I get in return? Karya reached across the table, grabbing him by the throat and slamming him against the wall. Patrons scattered. You get to keep your tongue, she growled. Cronies' cybernetic eye flickered. Fair trade. Lucas sighed. You could have let me handle that, you know? Karya released the informant, snatching the data chip from his trembling fingers. No, she said. I couldn't. They barely made it back to the ship before the bounty hunters came. Blaster fire erupted from the rooftops as they sprinted through the maze of alleys. Lucas ducked behind a pile of rusted crates, his pulse pistol humming to life. I knew that guy would sell us out. Karya didn't bother with cover. She caught one attacker midair, crushing his windpipe with a single squeeze before using his body as a shield. A plasma bolt seared her shoulder. She barely flinched. Lucas cursed. We are not doing this in the middle of the street. Karya hurled the corpse at another shooter before charging forward, ripping a rifle from a mercenary's hands and using it like a club. Bones snapped. Screams echoed. Lucas took down two more with precision shots to the knees. As the last bounty hunter fled, Karya turned to Lucas, breathing heavily. He holstered his pistol. You okay? She wiped blood from her knuckles. They were weak. Lucas let out a breath. Remind me to never piss you off. She smirked, just barely. They boarded the ship, engines roaring as they lifted off the cursed planet. Lucas turned to her as they entered hyperspace. You don't have to do this, you know. Karya's silver eyes burned with something new. Yes, I do. And for the first time in her life, the rage inside her had a purpose. Hyperspace stretched before them like a shimmering tunnel of endless stars, but Karya found no peace in the void. She sat in the cargo bay, running a sharpening stone along the edge of a stolen Syndicate vibroblade. The weapon hummed softly in her hands, its energy core pulsing like a heart. Lucas leaned against the bulkhead, watching her. You don't have to do that, you know? Blades like that stay sharp on their own. Karya didn't look up. Weapons are useless if you do not know their soul. Lucas exhaled, stepping closer. And what's yours? She finally met his gaze. A blade does not ask questions, human. Lucas frowned. I don't think that's true. If it were, you wouldn't be here. Karya let the blade rest across her knees, her grip tightening. Why am I here? She had been given freedom, yet she chose to stay. Chose to follow this human into enemy space, into danger. And for what? A ghost of a people she barely remembered? A past she had already buried in the pits? The thought unsettled her more than she cared to admit. Lucas sat across from her. Look, I get it. You've spent your whole life fighting for someone else's amusement. Now you're fighting for something real, and that's terrifying. Karya scoffed. And you assume I need your wisdom? Lucas grinned. No, I assume you need a co-pilot. Karya blinked. Then, to her own surprise, she laughed. A short, sharp sound, as foreign to her as the stars outside. Lucas raised an eyebrow. Was that? She cut him off by tossing the vibroblade across the room. It embedded itself an inch from his head, humming with energy. Keep talking, human, she said, smirking. See where it gets you. Lucas chuckled, shaking his head. Noted. But in the silence that followed, Karya couldn't help but wonder. If she was just a weapon, why did it feel so different to fight by someone rather than against them? Lucas, we have a problem. Karya stood in the cockpit, arms crossed, her silver eyes locked on the blinking red alert on the ship's console. Lucas frowned, sliding into the pilot's seat. What are we looking at? She tapped the screen. Something is tracking us. Lucas scanned the readings. The tracker was subtle, almost ghost-like. Whoever was following them wasn't some run-of-the-mill bounty hunter. This was professional. Damn it, he muttered. Syndicate? Or worse. Lucas adjusted the ship's trajectory. We need to shake them before we get to the colony. If we lead them there, we might as well hand them a target on a silver platter. Karya's jaw tightened. Then we kill them first? Lucas sighed. I love how that's always your first idea. She shrugged. It works. He punched in new coordinates. Fine. We drop out of hyperspace, draw them out, and deal with them. Karya grinned. Now you're thinking like a warrior. Lucas shook his head. I'm thinking like someone who doesn't want to get shot in his sleep. Karya leaned against the wall, watching as the hyperspace tunnel collapsed around them. Outside, the vast darkness of space stretched endlessly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the shadows moved. A sleek black vessel emerged from the void, its hull lined with crimson lights, its form predatory and deliberate. Karya's grin faded. That's not Syndicate. Lucas's blood ran cold. No, it's worse. The ship's comms crackled to life. Lucas Hayes, a voice purred, smooth as silk and twice as deadly. We've been expecting you. Lucas had heard that voice before, and he knew exactly what it meant. Karya watched as his face darkened, his normally sharp gaze shifting into something more haunted. You know them, she said. Lucas exhaled slowly. They're called the Black Talon. Karya frowned. Mercenaries? Worse. They're collectors. She stiffened. Slavers? Not just slavers, Lucas said, fingers tightening on the controls. They specialize in hunting rare specimens. Things people will pay a lot of money to own. Karya's expression hardened. She didn't need to ask why they were here. Lucas opened the comms. You're wasting your time, Talon. We're not for sale. The voice on the other end chuckled. Oh, but she is. Karya's muscles coiled, her silver eyes burning. Last chance, Hayes, the voice continued. Hand over the ZHYR VIN, and you walk away. No fuss. No mess. Lucas locked eyes with Karya. She knew what he was thinking. If they fought, they'd be up against some of the most ruthless hunters in the galaxy. They could lose. And yet, Lucas cut the comms. Karya smirked. That was stupid. Lucas grinned. Yeah, but it felt good. The enemy ship's weapons powered up. The hunt had begun. Karya cracked her knuckles. Let's see who's hunting who. And with that, the warship opened fire. The Black Talon ship struck first. Energy lances seared across the cockpit's viewport as Lucas yanked the controls, twisting the ship into a tight barrel roll. The inertial dampeners groaned under the sudden shift, but he held steady, weaving through the storm of plasma fire. They're trying to disable us, he growled. Karya braced herself against the bulkhead. Then don't let them. Wow, amazing tactical insight, Lucas snapped, banking hard to the left. Remind me why I keep you around? Karya grinned, slamming her fist against the weapon's console. Because you need someone to fight while you run. The ship's automated turrets roared to life, spitting crimson streaks of plasma at the Black Talon vessel. The enemy ship was bigger, heavier, but it was fast, darting through the onslaught like a predator circling wounded prey. Lucas cursed. They're too well-armored. We're barely scratching them. Karya narrowed her eyes. Then we board them. Lucas shot her a look. What? She was already moving, securing the last straps of her armor. Get close enough, and I'll breach their hull. Lucas barked a laugh. You're insane. Karya smirked, flexing her fingers. You're just figuring that out now? Lucas muttered something under his breath, adjusting course. Fine, but if you die, I'm not giving you a funeral. Karya clapped him on the shoulder. Then I'll make sure not to die. The ship jerked forward, accelerating straight toward the enemy. The Black Talon vessel hesitated, likely surprised at the suicidal maneuver. That hesitation was all Lucas needed. He pushed the engines to full, skimming dangerously close to the larger ship's hull. Karya didn't wait. With a single, powerful leap, she hurled herself into the void. Zero gravity swallowed her whole. The silence of space pressed around Karya as she activated the magnetic clamps in her boots, landing hard on the Black Talon's hull. The ship's surface was smooth, almost organic in design, but she barely noticed. Her instincts took over. She moved with lethal precision, climbing toward an exposed maintenance hatch. A single punch from her augmented strength ripped the hatch free, and she slipped inside, vanishing into the ship's dark corridors. The air was stale. The walls pulsed with crimson light. Karya moved like a shadow, bare feet silent against the metal. The first Talon mercenary never saw her coming. She caught him by the throat, lifting him off the ground before crushing his windpipe in a single squeeze. His body fell limp. No alarms, no sound. Good. She advanced deeper. Lucas's voice crackled through her earpiece. You in? Yes. How's it going? Karya glanced down at the dead mercenary at her feet. Quiet. Define quiet. She stepped over the corpse. Efficient. Lucas sighed. Remind me to never be on your bad side. You already are. Fair point. Karya smirked, moving toward the control center. If she could disable their weapons, Lucas could finish the fight from the outside. But as she rounded the next corner, she froze. A massive, reinforced door loomed before her, its surface engraved with HFY symbols. Her people's language. Her pulse quickened. She pressed her palm against the cold metal. It slid open with a low hiss. Inside, cages. Rows of them. And inside the cages, her people. Karya's breath caught in her throat. HFY warriors, battered and broken, lay slumped against their restraints. The once mighty figures of her kin, reduced to nothing more than trophies. A fire ignited in her chest. One of them stirred, lifting his head. His silver eyes locked onto hers, widening in disbelief. Karya? Her heart clenched. Who did this? A voice answered from behind her. I did. She spun, muscles coiled to strike. The figure standing in the doorway was tall, almost as tall as her. His skin was the same violet blue as hers, but his face was marked by cruel cybernetic implants, his once proud warrior's crest replaced by a metallic graft. Brother, he said, his voice hollow, you should not have come. Karya's blood turned to ice. Velos. Karya had thought Velos dead. He had vanished when their world fell, either slaughtered or enslaved, just like the rest of them. And yet here he stood, clad in black Talon armor, his once noble face twisted into something cold, inhuman. She took a step forward. "What have they done to you?" Velos tilted his head. "They saved me. They gave me purpose." Karya bared her teeth. "They made you their dog." His silver eyes darkened. "And what are you?" He gestured to the prisoners. "You think freeing them will change anything? We are extinct, Karya. This is survival." She clenched her fists. "This is slavery. It is power." Velos snarled, stepping closer. "And you would have had it too, if you had only bent the knee." Karya shook her head. "I'd rather die on my feet than kneel." Velos sighed. "Then die you shall, sister." The fight was inevitable. He lunged. Karya blocked the first strike, barely shifting in time as his cybernetic fist shot toward her ribs. She countered with a crushing elbow to his jaw, but he absorbed the blow, retaliating with a brutal kick to her midsection. The force sent her skidding backward. She grinned, blood dripping from her lips. "Not bad." Velos cracked his knuckles. "Not good enough." And then they clashed. The fight was brutal, raw. No wasted movement, no hesitation. Only the lethal efficiency of warriors forged in battle. Velos was fast, stronger than he had been before. But Karya had spent years surviving the pits, fighting things worse than him. She ducked beneath a vicious strike, twisting her body into a low sweep that knocked him off balance. As he stumbled, she drove her knee into his gut, sending him crashing into the wall. Velos coughed, blood flecking his lips. He looked at her with something almost like sadness. "You should have fought with me, sister." Karya's chest ached. "You should have fought against them." He lunged again, this time with a hidden blade. Karya dodged too late. The knife sank into her side. She gasped, pain searing through her body. Velos pressed closer, twisting the blade. "Goodbye, Karya." Her vision blurred. She could hear Lucas's voice screaming in her ear. But Karya only saw her brother's face. And then, darkness, pain. A slow, creeping fire spread through Karya's side, radiating from the blade still buried in her flesh. The world blurred at the edges, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Velos loomed over her, his silver eyes unreadable. "I didn't want it to be this way, sister." Her vision flickered. The cages behind him. The broken warriors watching in silent horror. The ship's cold, sterile walls. No, she would not die here. With a snarl, Karya grabbed Velos's wrist, ignoring the agony lancing through her body. Before he could react, she ripped the blade from her side and drove it into his thigh. Velos roared, staggering back. Karya lunged, pain forgotten, tackling him to the ground. She straddled him, her hands closing around his throat. "You were my brother," she snarled. "You were supposed to fight with me." Velos struggled beneath her grip, his cybernetic fingers clawing at her wrists. "And look where fighting got us," he choked out. "Dead. Forgotten." "Not yet." She raised her fist for the killing blow. The ship lurched, an explosion rocking the walls. Karya was thrown off balance as alarms blared to life. Lucas's voice crackled in her ear. "Karya, we have a problem." She growled, stumbling to her feet. "I noticed." "No, I mean a bigger problem." Before she could respond, the ship's artificial gravity failed. Everything became weightless. Karya's body lifted from the ground, her wounded side screaming in protest. Velos was already recovering, using his cybernetic enhancements to stabilize himself against the bulkhead. "You should leave, sister," he said coldly. "You are already dead." Then the emergency doors slammed shut, sealing him on the other side. Karya snarled, slamming her fists against the barrier. "Velos!" No response. The ship trembled again. "Lucas, we need to get the hell out of here," he shouted. "The Talon ship is breaking apart." Karya spun toward the cages. The warriors inside were staring at her, their eyes wide with something unfamiliar. "Hope. We're not leaving without them," she growled. "Working on it." The locks hissed open. The ZHYRVIN prisoners staggered out, some barely able to stand. "Can you fight?" Karya demanded. One of them, a scarred female with a shattered horn, clenched her fists. "We were born for it." Karya grinned. "Then let's go." The ship was dying. Fires raged through the corridors, oxygen vents hissing their final breaths. Karya led the surviving HFY through the chaos, her wounded side barely registering beneath the surge of adrenaline. Ahead, Lucas stood at the airlock, his pistol raised. "Took you long enough," he yelled, blasting a Talon mercenary trying to block their path. "Had to pick up some lost souls," Karya shot back. "Yeah? Well, let's not join them." He hit the emergency release. The outer doors ripped open. For a fraction of a second, there was nothing but the deafening roar of decompression. Bodies, debris, and fire rushed toward the void. Then the docking tether engaged, locking their ship in place. "Go!" Lucas shouted. The HFY warriors leapt across first, using what little strength they had left to propel themselves into the open airlock. Karya followed, barely catching the edge of the ramp as the last remnants of gravity slipped away. Lucas grabbed her wrist, pulling her inside. "I swear, one day you're going to get me killed." Karya smirked. "Not today." The ship's doors sealed behind them, and the engines roared to life. As they blasted away from the dying black Talon vessel, Karya watched through the viewport as the enemy ship ruptured, consumed by its own failing core. A fitting end, and yet, in the fire's glow, she swore she saw a shadow moving. Velos. He had escaped. The war was not over. Not yet. The surviving warriors sat in the cargo bay, silent. They were alive. Free. But Karya knew freedom was just another kind of battlefield. Lucas leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "So, what now?" Karya exhaled, her body finally feeling the weight of her wounds. "We find the others." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "You think there are more?" She met his gaze. "I know there are." A pause. Then Lucas nodded. "Then let's find them." Karya looked at the warriors before her. Once, she had fought alone. Now, she had an army. And soon, the galaxy would remember what it meant to fear the HFY. The ship drifted in the vast expanse of space, silent except for the hum of its engines. The HFY warriors sat in the cargo bay, licking their wounds, their silver eyes flickering with uncertainty. Freedom was a cruel, unfamiliar thing. Karya stood apart from them, staring out the viewport at the dying glow of the black Talon vessel's wreckage. Somewhere in that burning graveyard, Velos had survived. She could feel it. Lucas approached, hands in his pockets. "You're thinking about him?" Karya didn't turn. "He should be dead. But he's not." A muscle in her jaw twitched. "No, he's not." Lucas exhaled. "You know this means he'll come after us, right? He won't just let you walk away with his property." Karya turned to him, her silver eyes hard. "They are not his property." "No," Lucas agreed. "But Velos doesn't see it that way." Silence stretched between them. Then Lucas shrugged. "So, what's the plan?" Karya took a deep breath. "We find the rest of my people. We gather our strength. Asterisk. And then?" She looked back out at the stars, her expression unreadable. "Then we kill Velos." Asterisk. Hours later, the cargo bay had become a war room. The rescued HFY, 7 in total, stood in a loose circle, their postures wary, their eyes fixed on Karya. She met their gazes one by one. "I will not waste words," she said. "You all know what was taken from us. Our world, our honor, our freedom." A low murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Karya's voice hardened. "The galaxy thinks the HFY are gone, that we are broken, weak." She bared her teeth. "They are wrong." The scarred female warrior from before, Drenna, spoke up. "And what do you propose, Karya? That we take on the Syndicate? The Talons? We are 7. Karya smiled darkly. "For now." She turned to Lucas. "You know people. You know where the Syndicate sends its prisoners. Where they keep the ones too dangerous to kill." Lucas sighed, rubbing his temples. "You're really gonna make me do this, huh?" Karya crossed her arms. "Do you have a better idea?" He thought about it for a second, then groaned. Damn it. Asterisk. Karya smirked. That's what I thought. Asterisk. An hour later, Lucas was in the pilot seat, flipping through encrypted files on a stolen syndicate datapad. All right, he muttered. If we're looking for ZHY Arvin survivors, there are only a few places they'd be sent. Asterisk. He tapped the screen, pulling up a map of the outer fringe. Option 1, Zouther Prime. High-security labor camp, mostly mining operations. Brutal conditions, but some prisoners survive for years. Asterisk. Karya nodded. Next. Asterisk. Option 2, Voxus, 9. Not a prison. An arena. Lucas's face darkened. Bloodsport. No rules. No mercy. Asterisk. Karya's fists clenched. And the third? She asked. Lucas hesitated. Then he pulled up the final location. Option 3, Cradle 001. Asterisk. The room went silent. Drenna inhaled sharply. That's a myth. Asterisk. Lucas shook his head. Not according to syndicate records. If this is real, it's not just a prison. It's where they experiment on captives. Genetic modifications. Cybernetic enhancements. The ones who survive, well, let's just say they don't come out the same. Asterisk. Karya's blood ran cold. Velos. Now she understood. He hadn't just joined the Black Talon. He had been made into one of them. She turned to Lucas. We go to Cradle 001. Asterisk. Lucas stared at her. Are you insane? If even half the stories about that place are true, then we burn it to the ground. Asterisk. Lucas exhaled. Of course we do. Why do I even ask? He set the coordinates. Next stop, Hell itself. Asterisk. As the ship entered hyperspace, Karya retreated to the cargo bay. She sat against the wall, pressing a hand against the wound in her side. It was healing, slowly, but the pain kept her grounded. She welcomed it. Footsteps approached. Drenna sat beside her, silent for a moment. Then, you believe we will survive this? Karya looked at her. I believe we will fight. Asterisk. Drenna chuckled. That is not an answer. Asterisk. Karya closed her eyes. It is the only one I have. Asterisk. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Outside, the stars bled past, and in the void beyond, unseen eyes watched their ship, waiting. Hyperspace stretched around them in a tunnel of burning light, but Karya's thoughts were elsewhere. Cradle 001. The place where Velos had become something else. The place where more of her kind might still be suffering. She stood in the cargo bay, wrapping fresh bandages around her side. The pain was dull now, nothing more than a whisper beneath her skin. She had suffered worse. The real wounds were the ones she couldn't see. A familiar voice broke the silence. You're brooding. Asterisk. Karya didn't look up. I do not brood. Asterisk. Lucas leaned against the bulkhead. Yeah? Could have fooled me. Asterisk. She tied off the bandages and rolled her shoulders. What do you want, human? Lucas exhaled. You really think there's anything left to save? Karya stiffened. If there is even one ZHY Arvin in that place, I will tear it apart to free them. Asterisk. Lucas studied her for a long moment. Then he shook his head, muttering, I swear, you're gonna be the death of me. Asterisk. Then stay behind. Asterisk. Yeah, no chance of that. Asterisk. Karya smirked. Good. Asterisk. As they neared the outer fringe, Lucas pulled the ship out of hyperspace. The cradle was close now. Too close. Karya's instincts prickled. Something felt wrong. Lucas, asterisk, she said. Where are the patrol ships? Lucas frowned. Good question. Place like this should be swarming with defenses. Asterisk. Drenna, who had been watching from the co-pilot's seat, narrowed her eyes. It's a trap? Asterisk. Obviously, asterisk, Lucas muttered. Karya's fingers twitched toward her blade. Then we spring it. Asterisk. Lucas sighed. Of course we do. Asterisk. He guided the ship forward, approaching the darkened station. Cradle 001 loomed ahead, a massive structure built into the skeletal remains of an asteroid. No lights, no signals, just silence. Karya clenched her fists. I do not like this. Asterisk. Yeah, me neither, asterisk Lucas admitted. The comms crackled. Then, you came. Asterisk. The voice sent a chill down Karya's spine. Velos. The station came alive. Lights flared. Turrets deployed. Fighters screamed out of hidden hangars like a swarm of insects. Damn it! Asterisk Lucas cursed, pulling the ship into a hard, evasive maneuver. They were waiting for us. Asterisk. Karya's heart pounded. Get me close. Asterisk. To what? Certain death? To him. Lucas swore under his breath, but he didn't argue. He never argued when she had that look in her eyes. Drenna. Asterisk Karya barked. Get the others ready. We board the station. Asterisk. Drenna grinned. Finally, something I understand. Asterisk. The ship lurched as enemy fire clipped the hull. Not much time, asterisk Lucas warned. Make it count. Asterisk. Karya grabbed her weapons and stood at the airlock. Velos wanted her to come. She would give him exactly what he wanted. And then she would kill him. The ship shuddered as enemy fire grazed its hull, alarms blaring through the cabin. Lucas wrestled the controls, his knuckles white as he dodged plasma bolts that streaked past like fiery comets. I hope you have a damn good plan, Karya. Asterisk he shouted over the chaos. Yes, asterisk Karya said, strapping her weapons to her belt. We kill everything between us and Velos. Asterisk. Lucas groaned. Right, of course. Classic Karya strategy. Asterisk. Drenna stood by the airlock with the other ZHYRVin, cracking her neck. I like this plan. Asterisk. Lucas cursed as another blast rocked the ship. Fine, but if we all die, I'm haunting you. Asterisk. Get us close, asterisk Karya ordered. We'll handle the rest. Asterisk. Lucas punched the thrusters, sending the ship into a gut-wrenching dive. The station loomed ahead, a fortress of black steel and jagged spires. The airlock light turned green. Go! Asterisk. The doors hissed open, exposing them to the vacuum of space. Karya launched herself out first, the others following, magnetic clamps in their boots activating as they landed on the station's surface. Move! Asterisk Karya barked, sprinting toward an exposed maintenance hatch. Drenna yanked it open. Inside, dim red lights pulsed along the corridors. The cradle was awake. Karya stepped forward, her voice cold. Let's remind them why the ZHYRVin were feared. Asterisk. And with that, they entered the abyss. The first wave of enemies came fast. Black Talon mercenaries stormed the corridors, armored figures moving with brutal efficiency. Karya met them head-on. The first soldier raised his rifle, too slow. Karya closed the distance, ripping the weapon from his hands and driving a knee into his chest. His ribs shattered with a sickening crack. Drenna moved like a ghost beside her, slashing through two mercenaries with a stolen syndicate blade. Push forward. Asterisk Karya ordered. They fought through the winding corridors, moving deeper into the station. The lights flickered, casting twisted shadows across the walls. Karya could feel him now. Velos was waiting. The final doors slid open, and there he was. Velos stood in the center of a vast chamber, the ceiling lost in darkness. The throne behind him was built from bones. ZHYRVin bones. Karya's blood went cold. You finally came, sister, asterisk Velos said, his voice smooth, almost gentle. Did you miss me? Karya stepped forward, her silver eyes burning. I came to end you. Asterisk. Velos smiled. Then come. Asterisk. The battle was inevitable. Karya charged. Steel met steel. Velos blocked Karya's first strike, his cybernetic arm absorbing the impact. He countered with a brutal elbow to her ribs. She twisted away, narrowly avoiding the blow. They moved like shadows, every strike a deadly promise. Velos was stronger, faster, but Karya had spent years fighting for her life. She ducked low, driving her blade into his side. Velos roared, staggering back. You are not my brother anymore, asterisk Karya whispered. Velos's silver eyes darkened. No, I am something greater. Asterisk. He lunged, and Karya drove her blade into his throat. Silence. Velos gasped, blood spilling from his lips. His legs gave out. He fell to his knees, staring at her in disbelief. Karya, he rasped. Then he collapsed, dead. The battle was over. Karya stood over Velos's body, her breath heavy. The station was burning, alarms shrieking. Lucas's voice crackled in her earpiece. Karya, we need to go now. She turned to the others. We are leaving, she said. But this is not the end. Drenna nodded. No, it is only the beginning. They fled the station as it collapsed, fire consuming the horrors within. And as they escaped into the void, Karya knew. The galaxy would remember the HFY. And this time, they would not kneel. The ship drifted through the quiet void, the burning wreckage of Cradle 001 shrinking behind them. The battle was over. Velos was dead. And yet, Karya did not feel victorious. She stood in the cockpit, watching the dying embers of the station. Her people had suffered for too long. She had suffered for too long. But for the first time in her life, she was no longer alone. Drenna entered, standing beside her. We did it, she said. Karya exhaled. No, we survived. But it is not over. Drenna nodded. What now? Karya turned to Lucas, who sat at the controls, his expression unreadable. We rebuild, Karya said. We find the others. We make the galaxy fear us again. Lucas sighed. You're gonna start a war, aren't you? Karya's silver eyes gleamed. We already have. Lucas chuckled, shaking his head. I swear, I liked my life better before I met you. No, you didn't. He smirked. No, I didn't. The HFY survivors stood behind her now, waiting. For the first time in years, they had hope. And Karya knew this was only the beginning. She turned toward the stars, her voice steady. Set a course. For what? Lucas asked. She smiled. For war.